Okay, so here comes the Lieutenant General Mike Hood, Commander of the RCAF. We're really pleased he's here. He's a real student of history, and he's going to get an eyeful today as we begin our Halifax recovery, Canadian Halifax. So we're cool with that.
Karl? Thanks for the directions.
That's good.
Were we easy to pick out?
Yes. Nice to meet you.
How are you?
Jon?
Jon?
Mike.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, Jan is our lead diver. He's been masterminding everything underwater.
Good.
And Eric, come on up here. This is Swedish Coast and Sea Center, the president.
Eric, nice to meet you. Thanks for everything you're doing for us. Yeah, pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure having me.
Good.
Hi, I'm Gerard. Nice meeting you. Eric's good.
Well, I briefed your king on what we're doing here yesterday, and he had read about it in the news.
Okay, great.
So he was at the event where I was speaking yesterday.
Hey, Mike. How you doing? Karl Kasgaard.
Nice to meet you, Karl.
Hi.
Yeah.
The 405 Squadron.
Okay. That's right. Yeah. Nice meeting you. Yeah, you guys are doing great stuff. We really appreciate it.
Well, we're trying.
Yeah.
And we all know where it comes from, and we know we got to save it.
Yeah.
So.
And he gave a donation to you on your website.
Bless you, my son.
I did.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
It's only $100, but it'll help. It'll get you.
This is our first of 3 pools that we've got. So the 2 Merlins are in there.
Yeah.
And we just got to be careful of this sidewall.
It's fragile.
Yep, yep. So there you are. And so I know these engines have been sitting on top of the sand for like 70 plus years. And you know what? When you got bimetal corrosion, you know what's going to happen. And so, but they're great artifacts.
Is this what you were expecting?
Yes, because the engines were on top of the sand.
You saw them.
But the aluminium, I'm doing that for the Brits. the aluminum airframe that's under the sand, there's lots of sections that are really good.
Okay. And the pool is it fresh, completely fresh water?
Yes.
And why do you do that transition?
Well, all I know is the #1 priority is you've got brackish or salt water, you've got to get it in fresh water to start cleansing the salts. You know, you've got NaCl salt, and the Cl goes into the metal.
Okay.
So you've got to get it into fresh water so the Cl will come back out again. And you just don't, if you let it sit in the air, it will start to corrode and you will start losing whatever metal you've got left, you'll start losing it.
How do you know when it's able to be moved out?
What we want to do is we want to have water in. This is just an initial plan. We want to have water in, fresh water out. And we can keep track of how much is coming out of the water, and then we can tell. But if we have weeks of fresh water,
so you have to keep changing the water in the tank?
And we didn't want to muddy up the waters right now. But you know, right now after this, we're going to be changing water and exchanging water.
So what's the white in?
That's Jan and I were talking with the National Museum here is at Linköping.
It's at Stockholm. National Museum.
No, Linköping is where we just drove from.
Yeah. That's the National Air Force Museum.
Okay, but the lady there that helps with the corrosion, she's advising us and saying this is the oxide and the chlorides coming out of the engine block. It's kind of like very light feathery stuff.
Yeah.
So there is a science to saving these artifacts.
So who are the divers? You're a diver?
I'm a diver. Peter is a diver.
Yeah.
You have Andreas.
Yeah. Andreas is a diver.
And a couple of other guys. One diver is coming here.
There's another good man.
Is it a very complex dive?
No.
For it's
13 meters.
Yeah. What are you normally diving for? Your recreational dives?
Wrecks. Shipwrecks.
Have you dealt with aircraft before?
Well, since 2011.
Yes.
Okay. We have several aircraft wrecks outside here in the coast. This is just one of them.
Yeah. And the other ones identified?
We have identified 2, and we are hunting for the 4th one. You can tell them, John, about the B-17.
Yeah, they found the B-17 right outside Trelleborg Harbor.
Yeah, it hit hard though.
Yeah, 2015, it hit hard, yeah. There's only the engines left, no fuselage.
Yeah.
but
Right.
we can see that there has been a complete aircraft because the lineup of all the small hills of ammo is lying just in the
Okay.
middle of the engines. So it has been a complete aircraft.
Pentagon is coming here.
So this is,
Visiting them to discuss.
But I think this
Oh, in
is,
case there's some human remains in them?
sure.
I think-
Mike, this is a unique project because no one's been able to get permission, thanks to the
But who
the
found
min-
who? You knew this one was here, or you found it and reached
Well,
out?
it's, I guess my reputation preceded me. Eric and the guy said, where could we find a nutcase that would want to save a Halifax? And so SCSC and Lund University contacted me and said, we know where there's a Halifax. We think it's a Halifax. Will you come and help us identify it? And it didn't take very long before, hey, that's a Halifax. And then we knew that 405 Squadron lost a Halifax just off the point there. So we were able to confirm by the engine serial numbers, we knew which one it was.
So would there still be any local people left who may have known the crew or more of the story?
They may have, but when first time I went out with these guys in May of last year, I had the phone number of the pilot of that
No, you
Halifax.
told me that story,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I was wondering locals here and
Well, you know who I'd like to talk to is the farmer's family that they lost a cow. Because the pilot was coming down in his parachute and he landed right on the neck of a cow and killed it stone dead. So I thought maybe...
So they had good eating for a while.
Yeah, but I thought maybe if the farmer had been ticked off, we could buy them 70 or 80 steaks and then we'd all be square.
Is it okay to touch it?
Yeah, sure.
The white stuff is very fluffy and
Yeah.
It's very fluffy and very light. That's a head bolt, and there would be a series of them running down the engine head on the side of the V12. And you know how bimetal corrosion, you have one metal goes first, and it corrodes faster than another one?
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah, so the kind of like stellite valves, there's 4 valves in each cylinder of this engine. And the head, the alloy of the head was missing, and when they lifted an engine up, here's a whole row of valves. They're right there over on the table. A whole row of valves are standing like this all by themselves, no head.
Okay.
But they're right behind you there on that little display stand. The stellite valves from a Merlin.
it's a galvanic corrosion.
Yeah. So you see, you could easily, you know, it becomes an artifact, but you can see how, you know, these are not super corroded.
Yeah.
And they might be usable. I've got a friend in,
Is that a prop hub?
that's a reduction gear that goes
off the engine.
inside the prop hub. There's a prop hub there over in a small pallet under the water. So, but this is part of that reduction gear casing on the front of the Merlin. That is the pot metal, the induction, the light metal,
Yeah.
that would be the induction casing. So, you know, there's a ton of stuff still out there. I would say 80–90% of the airplane is still out there. And Jan has come up with this beautiful system. He took Jan, was it over 3,500 photos? Yep. And he turned it into a giant mosaic, and that's it here. So there's the size of the diver. So Jan went up and down the field, and he took, this is a giant 11.7 megabytes of photos, and that's the size. That's the center section, the fuselage area. These are the 3 engines that we found so far. We're looking for the 4th engine, but it could be out of sight.
Well, Karl, it was a fantastic experience seeing the work that you've done here today with our great Swedish friends. You know, I followed vicariously through your website updates and the great work that you're doing here, and you know, just the opportunity to touch something that's been underwater since 1943. A iconic piece of Royal Canadian Air Force history is actually quite touching. It's amazing. It was worth every minute of the travel and drive to get here to see you, and great day for the Royal Canadian Air Force. I was in Trenton in the early days when we brought the pieces back from Norway of that beautiful, magnificent aircraft that's now the centerpiece of the National Museum of the Canadian Air Force. And I've seen other pieces of memorabilia, and in fact, if you were to look at my desk right now, one of those ingots that you gave me from the 426 recovery in Belgium is sitting there. So I don't think any piece is too small or too large. Of course, it'd be great to get something that we could get into the back of shape of Halifax, the Halifax and Trenton is. But you know, I think every little bit helps tell the story of an awful lot of young men who went in the service of their country and didn't come back. 26,000 odd in bomber group. So now to the second part of your question. I mean, history is really important to the Royal Canadian Air Force. I come into the job as commander, and the official history of the Royal Canadian Air Force, Volume 3, ends in 1945. So I've made it a priority of my time in command to, you know, start to set the record straight. We were born out of war with a wonderful pedigree and great history, and I think that there's a lot of lessons that we can learn from that to inform the Royal Canadian Air Force moving forward. It's not about melancholy looking back to what was, although that's an important part of recognizing our history. But it's about moving forward with this great institution, the Royal Canadian Air Force. And I think the work that you're doing is just an incredible cornerstone of what we need to be thinking about moving forward. It's this really important part of our nation's history is probably not as well known as it should be across the country. I take a lot of you know, enthusiasm out of the fact that the museum in Trenton, for example, is now the largest tourist attraction really between Kingston and Toronto, and that there are over 50,000 primarily school children who go and get educated in the history of the RCF. I know Nanton shares a similar pedigree, as do a number of other great locations in Hamilton or around some of our wings. And I think it needs to be a tireless effort to keep, you know, keep those candles burning, because we've got to let Canadians know about this great part of their history that that isn't well known enough. So I mean, that gives me the energy to continue moving forward.
That's right.